Hello and welcome to this short video from BridgeHead Software. I'm Rowan, I'm an account manager at BridgeHead, and today we're talking about legacy systems in healthcare, a hot topic recently covered by Health Tech News featuring our global head of marketing, John McCann. With me is Jamie, our head of innovation and research at BridgeHead. So Jamie, good afternoon, welcome. To begin with, in the article, John outlines 3 different types of legacy applications. Can you describe what those are for us?
Yeah, I think it's and welcome to everybody. I think it's important that we understand that legacy applications are being created today. So we're often talking to our customers about how and where they come from, because we're still generating them as of today. So we've got the most obvious one is when we have organizations that are upgrading software. As it comes to the end of its life cycle, what happens to the old ones? We have things like replacement when we have organizations that merge together, and we've also got those ancient homegrown systems that were developed by one colleague many years ago that contain valuable data, but no one really knows how to use them anymore. So I think the article goes on to talk about how we need to be mindful today of how we're continuing to create legacy applications.
Absolutely. And Jamie, I'm sure as lots will have experienced firsthand, these could have many negative impacts on health organisations, acute in particular. What are the implications of keeping some of these legacy applications alive?
Absolutely. And again, always referencing back to the article because there's much more depth in there. So access to data is probably the big one. If it's important enough to keep the legacy application, then the data is obviously important enough that you need to access it. The NHS has spent a large amount of time and effort and money on single sign-on. Well, this is kind of the next generation beyond single sign-on, because you've still got to teach people about the application. If you keep the application, that's the big problem. So retiring the legacy application has significant impacts on accessing data. Of course, cost, IT resource, licensing. There is an increased burden on the IT staff because they are the ones that will be called when something either goes wrong or people need access and they can't remember. The big one that we'll talk a little bit more about is cybersecurity, and a big phrase we're going to hear from BridgeHead over the next few years is threat surface. A common phrase, we haven't invented the phrase, but legacy applications tend to run on older hardware, older operating systems, and they are an increased risk. So cybersecurity is a big reason, a big implication that organizations will suffer from. And finally, and there's probably many others, but the final one that we look at in the article is AI is changing the need to access data. Big data means lots of data. So the concept of legacy is becoming different. The application is legacy, but it doesn't mean the data is legacy. So I think AI is changing a lot of things. So there are, I think we list 5 or 6, again in the article, there's 5 or 6 different headlines that are affecting people keeping legacy applications.
Okay, excellent. So, I mean, it's clear legacy applications are the problem. So what's the solution? And are you able to cover how BridgeHead can help in this instance?
Yeah, obviously, that's a huge subject. I think one of the most important things is we've done this before. There's a lots of stuff in the article about a work we're doing with the University Hospitals, Derby and Burton. There's also Bradford Teaching Hospitals and Jersey. All of these organisations we're working with to help them standardize the place where they store data. We're using our single clinical data repository, which is really the solution that's working here to have a strategy for dealing with legacy applications. I think that's the most important thing that we ask of our customers. Ideally, they have the strategy with us, but there are many other people out there that can help them, or many other parts of the strategy. But I think it's making sure that you have both the tools to migrate away from the application and then the place to put it once you've removed it. And those 2 things are often very difficult for organizations to get both of them right, and I think BridgeHead solves both of those. So again, the article will go through kind of a case study and a look at particularly what we did with the universities, hospitals, Derby and Burton.
Absolutely. And finally, sort of looking on beyond application retirement and looking at more 2024 to 2026, what does the future hold, and how do you think BridgeHead are preparing for it?
Well, there's 2 words in there, and we'll talk about our preparation, but there's 2 words in there: general election and cybersecurity. General election, I think we can say very quickly, we think there's going to be one. It will have an impact on the NHS in many ways, particularly funding. What can BridgeHead do about that? probably not a lot, apart from help organisations react. I think regardless whichever government comes in, or what changes there are in the political landscape, do more with less is always going to be the mantra for the NHS. And I think, again, our clinical data repository, we really exemplify how we can do multiple roles with that one resource. So I think we will always help be cost effective with IT spend. The big thing that we're gearing up to, the big problem that I think people are going to need to face that isn't going away, is cybersecurity and attacks on the NHS, that attacks on any healthcare organisation. I think healthcare now is the third biggest recipient of cyber attacks, and it's growing faster than any other sector. And we're developing what we call a cybercrime mitigation series of tools, assets, and experience, really. So what the place that BridgeHead takes in this is that we can't prevent organisations being victim to cybercrime, but what we can do is make sure you've got a robust strategy to cope with it if and unfortunately it's going to be a when it does happen. So our cybercrime mitigation activities are the thing that we're really focusing for 24-26.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. I think we wanted to keep this quite brief, so that's all for today. Thank you so much all for watching the video. We hope you learned something new and useful about legacy systems in healthcare and potentially how BridgeHead can help you tackle them.